Hello, in this video we will understand test estimation. So first of all we'll cover the introduction of test estimation. Then we look at the factors we need to consider for creating a test estimate. Then we'll see the approaches to create the test estimate. Then we'll look at a practical example of how to do software test estimation, and then we'll see the interview questions and answers or frequently asked questions and answers related to software test estimation. So let us get started. The estimation skill is an important skill for people working as test managers or test leads. Even if someone is working as a senior tester, they need to be able to estimate the effort required for their own tasks and for other tasks. So it is really a very important basic skill to have in software testing. Test estimation requires answering a couple of questions to yourself. What will be done? That means what will be the different tasks that need to be performed for successful testing, and then how much effort would each task take. Let us see the factors that we need to consider in test estimation. The first factor is the size of the system. If it is a complex and big system, then it takes more effort to test it. If it is a simple system, then obviously it takes less effort. It is also possible to find out what is the size of the system components that need to be tested, and we have to consider those when doing the test estimation. The second factor in test estimation is the types of testing needed. It can be just functional testing, or it can be both functional and non-functional testing, like performance testing and security testing. So in test estimation, if multiple types of testing is needed, then we can create the test estimates for those separately and add all of them up. Another factor in test estimation is whether we go in for scripted or exploratory testing. If scripted testing is being used, then we need to estimate the time it will take to create the test scripts that will be executed. And sometimes, or most of the times, both scripted and exploratory testing is used, so we need to estimate the time effort required for each one of these types of testing. In test estimation, we also need to consider the supporting activities. There are the activities of bug reporting, retesting, regression testing, meetings, entering time, etc. So all these are also included in the test estimation. Finally, you need to consider how many test cycles will be executed. Some people make the mistake of just assuming that there will be a single test cycle. That means all the tests will be executed once and everything will pass, which is not the reality. In reality, multiple test cycles are required, because in the first test cycle you will find certain defects. Those defects will be fixed, and then you will get another build which you need to test. So you can assume that there will be 2 test cycles, one after the other, and do the estimation for both these test cycles. Now let us look at the common test estimation approaches. The first approach is to use the data of completed projects. So this is useful in case it is a very similar project to the previous project, and you have the historical data of the previous project, how much effort was required in testing for each and every task in testing, and you can modify that data according to the current requirements at hand that you need to test, and create the test estimate. The second approach can be the organization's custom approach. Some organizations have their own estimation approach. They consider a number of factors, and using some formula they come up with the overall test effort estimate. So if your organization has its own estimation approach, you can use that. Then there is the Delphi method. In the Delphi method, you have a number of experts who know about the requirements, who know testing, who each come up with their own individual test effort estimates. And then they sit down and they look at the effort estimates and answer questions if there are discrepancies between their estimates, and ultimately they arrive at a consolidated estimate. You can use this approach if you have multiple experts available, senior people who know about testing and who are very familiar with the system requirements. You can use the Delphi method. Then there is the expert judgment approach. In the expert judgment, you do not look at the details, but using your past knowledge, experience and knowledge, you can come up with the overall test effort estimate. The next approach is the size-based estimation approach. So you divide up the requirement into different sizes and then add up all those sizes, apply the conversion factor if it is available, and then you can, from the size, you can arrive at the effort estimate. A common approach and a very useful approach in my opinion is the WBS, work breakdown structure or activities based estimation approach. Here you divide the overall testing activities into top level groups. Then within each group you can list the activities, basically form a hierarchy of all the testing activities required to successfully conduct the testing on your system. And for every bottom level activity, come up with the estimate. So this approach, in my opinion, gives you the most accurate test effort estimate. One thing to remember regarding the approaches is that never rely on just one approach. At least use a couple of approaches and see if you're getting similar effort estimates. That will give you the confidence in your effort estimates if you are questioned by the client or the management. Now let us look at an example. So here we have a sheet in Excel, and the first column is the task that we need to perform. The second column is the usage notes. Basically it describes what this task is about and what formula we are going to use. Then there is the formula for the cumulative effort until that task, which means that we just keep on adding all the estimates, and then I have put some example values and shown you the cumulative effort so far. So in this example, let us say that we have to perform testing on the system, and these are the various tasks. The first task is the QA environment or test environment preparation. So obviously before testing can begin, the test environment needs to be ready. So here what we do is we estimate this based on the hardware installation, software installation and deployment of build. And here for example I've said that it's going to take 2 hours. So the total effort until this point is T1, which is 2 hours. So the cumulative effort until this point is 2 hours. The next is testing of N requirements. You may have so many requirements. Here what we need to do is estimate the testing time per requirement based on the detail of the requirements. So if the requirements are very detailed, low level atomic requirements, then this factor can be 0.5 hours or 30 minutes, or if the requirements are at a higher level, it can be up to 4. So let us say we have 100 requirements, and they are detailed requirements, and we are going to keep the testing time per requirement as 0.5 hours. So 100 requirements into 0.5 hours means 50 hours plus 2 hours for test environment preparation. So our running total so far is 52 hours. The next task is negative and exploratory testing. So what we can do here is use 20% extra testing time per requirement to cover other things such as invalid values for test data, or go through different paths to find out the defects, etc. So our total becomes 100 requirements into 0.5 into 1.2. So for every requirement we have 0.5 hours, and we are going to add 20% for negative and exploratory testing. So this gives 0.6 hours per requirement into 100 requirements is 60 hours plus 2 hours for the test environment preparation. So our total running total so far is 62 hours. Then the next task is retesting due to requirement changes or requirement clarifications. So here we can estimate what is the requirement correctness and stability. So here we can put any number between 0.1 and 0.5. 0.1 if the requirements are very stable and correct, not many changes are going to be there. Or if the requirements are really lousy, then we can even go until 0.5. So we can just say, for example, it is 0.2. So that means we are going to add another 20% for retesting required due to requirement correction or changes. So let us see this figure again. So here it is 0.5 hours per requirement into 1.2 for testing and negative and exploratory testing, and again add 20% for retesting into 1.4 into 100 requirements plus 2 hours for preparing the test environment. So this gives us a total of 72. Then we can estimate what is the effort required to log the defects and retesting the fixes. So for example, we can say that the estimated time to log a defect in the bug tracking system is 15 minutes or 0.25 hours, and the time required to retest a fix is 0.25 hours. We also will have to estimate the number of defects that will be there. So let us say there are 10 defects. So 10 into 15 minutes for logging and 15 minutes for retesting, that means 10 into 30 minutes. So that is 5 hours. So to the previous total we can add 5, and now our running total is 77. Then the next task is regression testing, and we can estimate what is the effort required for regression testing. So let us say it's going to take 10 hours. So we can add 10 to the previous cumulative effort. So 77 now becomes 87 hours. Then there is a reserve. So sometimes, actually most of the times, there are unforeseen tasks like the test environment goes down, or some requirements are added, or instead of finding just around 10 defects, you find more defects, etc. So it is the norm to keep 5 or 10% as the reserve or buffer. So 87 was our previous cumulative effort. So we can add 10%, which means we can add say 9 hours to this, and now our running total so far is 96 hours. Then the next task is communication. So daily the testers have to attend meetings and they have to report the test status, etc. So here we can find out what is estimate the effort required on meetings and reporting, say half an hour, multiplied by team members. Say there are 2 team members and the total number of testing days is 6. So 0.5 into 2 into 6 is 6. So 96 was the previous cumulative effort. We add 6 to it and we get 102 hours. So 102 is the final test effort estimate for this particular example, and we can match it by number of testing days because there are 2 testing team members. So 102 divided by 2 people, so it is 51 divided by 6 testing days. So each tester has enough work for 8.5 hours every day. So this is an example of the test effort estimation, and you can customize it according to your particular project. Maybe your test environment preparation doesn't take 2 hours, it takes more or it takes less. You are definitely going to have a different number of requirements. Depending on the detail of the requirements that you are testing, the factor T2 can be different. So you can customize this formula and arrive at the total effort estimate required for testing. So let us move to the Q&A for estimation. So first question is, what data would you gather and analyze before starting test effort estimation? Scope of work is what is really required before you can create the test effort estimate. So for example, you can find out what is the size of the test system, what are the types of testing needed, functional testing, performance testing, what is the test strategy, how many test cycles you have planned, what are the non-testing activities, etc. The best approach to use is the work breakdown structure because it gives you a very accurate estimate. The second question is, what approach would you use or prefer to create a test effort estimate? Well, it depends on the available data and time at hand. Sometimes we have great amount of data available and sufficient time is there, so then we can go for the detailed approach, for example using the work breakdown structure. If very less time is there, then or data is not there, then you can use expert judgment, but at least you should use a couple of approaches to find out if the test effort estimates are similar, so that you have confidence in your estimates. The next question is, which approach would you prefer if the test effort estimates are needed quickly? So if test effort estimates are needed quickly, you can obviously go in for expert judgment, and also you can estimate activities at a summary or group level. Because it is a quick estimate, then buffer is definitely required, so you can add 5% or 10% of buffer to cover any unforeseen activities. Next question is, which approach would you use to get accurate test effort estimates, for example as required by a services company to quote in a fixed bid project? So if you're working in a services company that provides testing services to their clients, and you have to give a quotation for a fixed bid project, that means the price of the project is going to be the same. You need very accurate test effort estimates. So here you can use the bottom-up approach for creating the effort estimates. So you can create a very detailed WBS and look at each and every low-level task in it and come up with the effort estimate. So all these individual effort estimates will add up and give you the overall effort estimate. Next question is, what is the two estimate approach? Sometimes we have to use a two estimate approach. Let us say the client has a fixed budget and there is not something we can do about it. So the contracting person or company, they may have reason to work more hours than for which they are billing. Maybe it's a first project and they just want to create a relationship repo with the client. So in that case they can work with two effort estimates. One will be the internal, which is the actual effort, and the second is for the client. And the idea here is that the effort estimate shared with the client will be according to their fixed budget. Next, what data would you analyze to confirm or revise your test effort estimate? It is important to keep a track of what are the actual data you are getting when testing is going on. So what you need to do is look at the actual time that is being logged by the testers in your team, so that you can find out if there are any surprises, and you can use this data to refine later estimates so that your later estimates can become more accurate. Next, is there any supporting data required with your test effort estimate? Absolutely. Because it is not possible to get buy-in for an effort estimate without giving the estimation approach. The moment you submit your test effort estimate to your management or the client is going to ask you what approach you have used. So not only should you have the approach available to explain to them, but also you should have the supporting data, and also you can submit what assumptions you have used while creating your estimates. Next, what risks do you see to render a test estimate effort estimate inaccurate? There can be many risks, but the important ones are the scope risks. So if there are major changes to scope, let us say a lot more features have to be tested, or the system changes, and you have to redo the test design, so that can be a risk. There can be resource risks, like you were counting on a particular tester to be available for the project, but they are not available, or they need more time to get up to speed. There can be quality risks. For example, the build that is submitted gets rejected and it has to be resubmitted, etc. Or there can be technical risks, like the test environment may go down, or the test deliverable is not accepted by the client. So there are many risks. So obviously risk management practices have to be followed. So you should first of all identify all the risks in your software testing project, and then find out what is the best mitigation strategy and contingency strategy for those. The next question: when would you revise your test effort estimates? So that is whenever there are major changes in the project. So major changes are scope changes. Let us say bunch of new features are added, so obviously your existing test effort estimates will no longer be accurate. You have to estimate against the new requirements. If there are new types of testing included, like load testing, or security testing, or privacy testing, then you have to again revise your test effort estimates, because you cannot absorb this extra work within your existing test effort estimates. Next is, how do you improve your estimation skills? So the way to improve your estimation skills is first of all to brainstorm and come up with each and every activity that will be required to be performed, and also keep a track of the actual effort data, because that is what will show you what really happens in practice. And when you compare your initial effort estimate with the actual data, that is actual effort being put in by the team members, so that is when you will know how to what are the surprises and how to refine your future estimates. So I hope this video was useful to you and you were able to understand test effort estimation. So thank you very much.